Hyder.
Hi.
Such a pleasure to have you back. Second time in a row for me. I always find it really, really heartwarming to sit and chat with someone who's as humble as you are and who has always such a wealth of wisdom to share with people. I want you to know that, over the couple of years that I've known you, I've personally, on my professional journey, I've been following you, as you know, even prior to us meeting for the first time in 2016 when you came for the honor of the Anoki Award back then. You came again this weekend, which is the other time that I've had the opportunity to have you in my space, in my home. And again, this is for the anniversary of Anoki Media's 15th milestone year. And this really was a special campaign for us. It was the Empower Me campaign. And a part and parcel of that was to bring power players from across the world in different industries from my community, not only to kind of honor and showcase them, but to also have them sit and chat about the truth of their journey, how they built their brands, and to also mentor my audience. This is something you did yesterday, and I had so many people say to me afterwards that you were one of their favorite chats.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And the reason is that you, at the end of the day, what I notice in kind of your style and who you are and your brand is a lot of what you do is, offer up nuggets of wisdom. Like, you're constantly informing people about the expertise that you live in, which is kind of the intersection between, marketing, technology, and that whole world that you were really one of the pioneers in. So let's talk a little bit about, what the journey's been like, for you over the course of in traditional career realms has been relatively short, but in the realm of the industry you live in, you're kind of like a quote unquote grandma, right?
Yes. Yes.
So what overarching over those years, when you look back, how's it been for you?
Yeah, the word that comes to mind, Raj, is tremendous. It's been tremendous just to see not just my journey, because I feel like my journey has been very parallel to the journey of technology and social media in general, right? So if you look like 10 years ago, and I mentioned this yesterday when I was speaking, I think people were like, we live in this world now, but we don't realize even just how 10 years, just not that long time, everything looked different, right? There's no Instagram, there's no Snapchat, there's no iTunes like we know it now. The iPhone was 1/10 of the capacity. There's no Airbnb. There's no Uber. We live in a very different world. And so my journey, I think, has very much followed that curvature of look where we were, look, when we work with brands, look who you're trying to market to, what you're doing, and look at today. And so someone recently asked me what my purpose is, and you're so clear. Before the cameras rolled, we were talking about that, and you have such a great sense of who you are. And for me, that's been that's a process. I'm always trying to figure out what is that a work in progress, I think, is who I am. And so with that, when someone asked me that question, I was really thinking about it, and what came to me was I think my purpose is just to help people succeed in the digital age, right? So whether that's businesses and brands and how do you make sense of this world, because it's a very different world, not just in man, things have changed, but wow, right? Things have changed. And just to put it in perspective, if you took someone from the 1800s, so someone in 1800, and you move them back to 1700, so 100 years, reversed it, it would not be as much of a culture shock, 100 years, right? Versus if you took someone even from 1980 and fast forward them now, they wouldn't know. They'd be where are the taxis? What is this device? And so in some ways, I think it's fascinating because I tell people this now, you're not even marketing to consumers, and everyone's marketing. Everyone has a brand, a message, whatever you're doing. You're marketing to gods. And that's really the big shift. And so for me, it's helping people understand what that shift looks like, what that means, and then how to best take advantage of that, how to articulate that. How do you market to gods?
Wow. So how do you define these gods?
So the gods are really you and I, right? The modern day consumers, and the power is in our technology. Because think about this is the crazy part. Let's say we wanted a meal, gourmet anything. 30 minutes, 45 minutes tops that we could order whatever meal we wanted. Let's say you and I wanted to go catch a movie tonight, right? How many minutes for us to look up reviews, find which one we really want, which one the critics and audiences love, book tickets, have our snacks ordered, right? And then call an Uber to take us there. Like all these things that really, right? So these are like, that is power. The power to make decisions, the power to buy. Do you order from Amazon, Raj?
Yes.
Right? So this is like, when I keynote, I ask audiences this and everyone laughs, but it's so true, and they groan because I ask audiences all the time. I say, how many of you have honestly groaned when it says it'll take 2 days to get to you versus same day? You know, and the audience laughs because it's so true, right? Yes. Like I'm like, I have to wait 24 hours to get this package or whatever. Like that power has only belonged to the gods, the demigods, right? Being able to have anything you want, be able to do anything you want, so information in so many ways has been historically, because I know you enjoy history.
Absolutely, absolutely.
The domain of the powerful. Right? The church controlled it, so there's a long history of the Catholic Church, especially like Gutenberg. I mean, the reason they hated the press was like, now everyone has information, and by everyone you meant like small people who could afford information. But of course, the internet changed all of that, because information is no longer, doesn't belong to those that are powerful.
Absolutely.
It belongs to everyone. So if you lose your power card, right, you lose that, then what do you have? And so brands really have to look at that and define like, all right, so if we are marketing to gods, if we're engaging, if we're communicating, that means we have to find our place on Mount Olympus with them. And what does that look like? What can we give them? Maybe it's exclusivity, maybe it's, right, it's something that you can give them, which I think Anoki is so well poised, by the way, like completely separate, but integrated in that sense that it's a unique experience, right? It's lovely that it like, the best thing that you can do in an age where information is available to everyone is be the curator. So the curator wins, because there's so much information, we still need it, but we need it relevance within context. So if I want to know, what's happening at the intersection of entertainment and glamour and media, and like everything that's hot in South Asian communities and what we're doing, then you think Anoki, right? And that's power, especially in this age where information is prevalent, but relevance is harder and harder to come by.
So would I be right in assuming that, just to kind of encapsulate what you said there, is that we've gone from a mass market opportunity to a niche market focused targeting kind of world? Would I be right in saying that?
Absolutely, because even think about like a brand, like a detergent brand, right? Or like Hudson's Bay, which is a cool department store. We don't have it in the States, so it's like, I love it when I'm in Canada because it's fun. And so you think about that, and this is crazy, but like even 30 years ago, 40 years ago, if they wanted to reach the Canadian market and they wanted to reach women like age 30 to 40, they could pretty much take an ad out on television, because guess what? 30 to 40-year-old women watch, like they had 70% coverage maybe, because there's like 4 channels, right? And so you pick the channel, you pick a show, you advertise, bam, you get 70%. Tell me what that demographic looks like today. There's nothing that'll give you 70% reach. So you have to be targeted. You might have to go Pinterest to find the women that are really crafty, that enjoy that sort of thing, and appeal to them for your KitchenAid items, or like, right, your different things that are going to appeal to them. Then you might have to market on house, because that's where the women who love the interior decor hang out. That's their domain. Instagram for fashion. So the world where you could get 70% mass audience, that's gone, right? Because we as a society have changed. We have so many choices now. Women are so empowered. So even that demographic of, you could say 40 years ago, if you're between the age of 30 and 40, majority women, married, 2 kids, probably not the sole breadwinner, right? Church on Sundays, whatever. It's a very specific, like, a lot of homogenous, right? Like, it's a very homogenous world. Today, we don't live in that world anymore. So you have to market accordingly.
Absolutely. And that kind of is a good thing, but a bad thing, right? I mean, there's two kind of ends of that story. The good thing being that now we can actually define definitively, what that demographic is that we need, and we know where to go to get them, right? But then on the other side, the problem becomes that if you're the kind of brand like, say, Coke, that is more generic and it's not so focus driven and you're looking for everyone, all of a sudden you have to have a strategy that's so multifaceted and so multi-platform based that you got to be everywhere. So it's not simple anymore.
Oh no, it's not simple, but it is a lot more cost effective too. Because before, and I think this is what's going to happen, especially, and mark my words, because I'm sure you'll play this recording when that happens, we are now in a bull market, right? The Canada is, North America is, we're very much in the global world sort of bull market. This is going to eventually change. We will have a recession. That's a given. When that recession hits, all these companies that have, these huge budgets, hundreds of millions to spend, will say, I can't do that anymore. I can't just buy the ad or work with my buddy's agency who has these funds. They'll be like, I have 12 million and everyone has to count, like every dollar has to count. So then you get really targeted. You partner with communities that have, that have the Hispanic reach, that have the African American reach, that have the South Asian reach. And you say, look, we've got to be really targeted and we have to appeal to these markets. And the good thing is your dollar goes a lot further.
Yeah.
So there is the good news, bad news, but it's more challenging, definitely. We don't live in that world of, it's not the Mad Men era anymore.
Absolutely.
Right? That's a bygone. I know you love the 60s.
Yes,
so.
love them. Especially the fashion and the beauty in those days.
That we can keep. That
Yes.
we can keep.
So let me ask you another question on the flip side of this. I mean, we've talked about, advertisers and more the kind of, companies that are looking to target the demographic. Let's talk about the demographics. Mm-hmm. Let's look at the consumer base out there. That world has changed as well in terms of the fact that, they know that the power's in their hand. We know as the consumer that the power is in our hand,
right.
that power dynamic has completely flipped the other direction, right? What are you seeing through kind of a lot of the different technology that you are privy to, far sooner than anyone else is? What are you noticing is the power dynamic with the consumer actually benefiting them? How is that benefiting them to be able to get out there and, be able to market their skill set or their products and stuff like that? Because now they are now becoming not just the consumer, but they're also becoming the, the companies that are targeting a consumer. So it keeps, it's kind of like, remember that doll that you'd have and you'd open it up and there'd be another doll, then you'd open it up, there'd be another doll. I feel that marketing has kind of become that now.
I love that. Yeah, so you're talking about micro brands, right?
Yes.
So every individual at some level is or can be like a micro brand if they so choose. But I think that's fascinating because the opportunities are endless. So before, to compete, you had to have the Coca-Cola budget.
Yeah.
Right? You couldn't just be a designer. You had to get a lucky break or something. But today, and I'll just give you an example. So last night we were at the Anoki Gala. I mean, look, gorgeous gowns, and I'm salivating looking at it. I'm like, oh, who's that? Who's that? And I approached this one gal. She had this gorgeous jacket on. I said, where did you get the jacket? And she said, oh, this designer in Toronto. I was like, love it. I was like, can I take a picture? She's like, great. This designer is a very small designer, a small shop. I found her on Instagram, liked a couple more things and sent a message and said, oh, do you have this jacket? That sort of thing is so easy now, and it all happened within the span of 2 hours. Mm-hmm. Versus when in history could you have that? So I think there is a lot of power. You have to be very strategic in how you use that.
Yeah.
So you have to be smart. Some of the questions yesterday were great because it's about the tactical, and I love sharing that because I think it does come down to that. How do you use Instagram? How do you use these platforms? What makes sense, and how do you integrate that? Even if you work for a company, I think this is what's fascinating, is the leaders today, there is a higher level, right, of you have to be transparent. So go back to the 60s, the more powerful you were, the harder you were to approach, and that was a symbol of your power, right? So if you had to go through 4 assistants, or 2 assistants to get to someone, that is an important person. There's gatekeepers. Today, the more important you are, you're expected to have fewer gatekeepers and more direct access. That is sort of the hallmark of true leadership. Because, you're Justin Trudeau, you're a prime minister, which I love because when I open LinkedIn, there's a video, right? And it's like, hey, guys, this is Justin Trudeau, and what can Canada do for you today? Leave me a comment. And I think that's so fantastic, and I love that, regardless of what you think of the politics side, and I'm not well versed in Canadian politics, but I find that fascinating of that's that is the expectation for leadership today, that you engage people at that level and that you are direct. In the States, Trump won the election. Again, politics aside, people were like, what is happening? He spoke to an audience that felt marginalized and obviously felt like they, and whose voice maybe was not being heard, and he did it through town halls and social media. Before that, President Obama, very similar. So the leadership today, regardless of where you're in an organization, it's very important to think about how you're building your brand too, because we all have an image today, whether we like it or not. The only question is like, how do you want that image to be perceived, and how would you like that curated?
Absolutely. Aside from all the knowledge and wisdom that you have in regards to, just sitting here chatting with you right now, I'm just so fascinated. And every single thing that you say, I have like a gazillion more questions to want to ask you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you this, Shama. Part of what you do is the educational factor, the information sharing component. That's a part of your brand.
Yeah.
The other part is the strategic element and the implementation element. Can we talk a little bit about that side of your business?
Sure. Yeah. So we work with brands all over Chase Business, the Navy. We've got some amazing clients, Tupperware, MaryKay. There's so many amazing brands doing wonderful things to empower the world, and we love being part of it. And so, yeah, we do both. We do the information strategy side, especially when they have like in-house teams, and then we do the execution side, because let's face it, frankly, all the knowledge in the world is great, and you still have to execute on it.
Absolutely.
Right? So it's very important to have that piece and then do it right, because again, your dollars on digital go further, but you have to know how to do that and be able to, because it's a very agile world. The power is in that agility and to say, this is working, let's amp this up.
Yeah.
Or this isn't working, let's turn this off. And you also didn't have that before, where with traditional media was very much you have something, you put it out there. If it does well, great. If it fails, you really have, you're right, like no way to change that. You just have to wait until the next cycle. Where on the digital side, it's very easy for us to say, this is working, this is the hot influencer, this is what's trending, and being able to take advantage of those trends.
Absolutely. Your company, in a very short span of time, has grown pretty exponentially. What do you attribute that to?
So good question. Partly luck. And I always give luck its due, because I know people are like, oh, but I do think there is a right time, right place element to everything. So there's that element. I think the other part is, having a pulse on the industry. We've been doing this longer than almost anyone, and you learn things, the more you do it. We know what campaigns work, what don't. And then I've been very blessed. We have a great team. Mm-hmm. I often joke like the people who work for us could be at Facebook or Google, but they work with us because, we allow flexibility. We work with some really great clients. We have a no jerks rule, like we don't hire them, we don't work with them. And so just the people you work with every day. And I think if that allows you to give your best self, then that's awesome. So I think those are a couple of things that have really helped us, find our place in the marketplace. And in complete transparency, we're always looking at ourselves too and saying, how do we rebrand, reemerge? Because you realize branding today for any organization is not a static thing.
Absolutely.
It's not, this is who we are, this is who we stay. This is who we are. How do we continuously change to cater to a very changing demographic and audience?
I noticed you did that about a year ago, right? You rebranded. Tell me what was the mindset behind the need to do that rebranding, and how has it actually helped you grow as a company? Yeah,
so we went from Marketing Zen to Zen Media. And part of that shift was, we started people know us as like the social media house. It's a lot of what we do. But there's so much more to it than that. Because I think a lot of times people think social media, they think platforms like Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter. And that's a part of it. But the much greater thing is like people are the media, hence like Zen Media. And for us, that Zen is so important because it's helping people take advantage of that ecosystem, really learn how to thrive, if you will, right, in that ecosystem. And so that's been our mission. And so Zen Media gave us a much broader umbrella to be able to consult with that. So when we first started, it was all execution. And now as companies have grown and they have in-house teams and some of that execution, they understand that need for strategic, like how do we keep up with this? What do we not, like what questions do we not even know to be asking? Right, that part of our business has grown exponentially.
What would you say is, your specific, unique value proposition in this sea of companies that are now doing a lot of similar things that your brand is doing?
Yeah, so I think, part of that is there's a lot of folks that are doing the tactical. Most of them come from a traditional background first, and then the social is kind of like that add-on layer. For us, we're by very nature a digital firm, right? Like those are our roots, and then everything else we learn. Like I learned business after I learned marketing, and you'll appreciate this, Raj. So I knew nothing about the business when I started. Like marketing, I understood. I started the company, I was on the phone with one of our first clients, and they said, what are your net terms? I had no idea what that meant. And so I was like, hold on. I turned to our VP, and she's older, and I was like, what are net terms? And she's like, oh, it's like how much time do you want, how soon do you want to get paid? And I was like, now? How's now sound? And so she'd be like a net zero, and don't say that. And so then I was like, okay, I was like, oh, a net 7, a net 30, but to me it's funny because the business part has been secondary, and really being entrenched in understanding marketing and this connected consumer, and not just the trends, but like these underlying principles of how to get people, how to attract them, how to engage them, how to retain them. I mean, a big part of our business now is brands who want more customer loyalty.
Absolutely.
Right? That retention part, because it's not
That's
just
a
about
huge part,
attracting.
Shama. That is probably the single, biggest problem digital marketers today are trying to solve, is the retention component.
Yeah, and part of that is relevance.
Yeah.
See, everyone keeps saying, and I think that's the right question to be asking is how do you stay relevant?
Yes.
People want to say, oh, how do we get loyalty? Well, loyalty is a derivative of relevance.
Yes.
If you're relevant, people will stay loyal to you. Loyalty is no longer given to brands. It's not a given. Even Coca-Cola has to fight for their share. It's just that's changing, and it's not to say, wow, we as a community or society are disloyal. It's what is relevant to me. So while Uber might be relevant today, maybe something else is relevant tomorrow, unless those brands constantly adapt.
Right.
And so it really is a matter of you can't rest on your laurels anymore. That's just the world we live in. And the thing about this, Raj, is I'm not emotional about it. Like, you think, oh, I must have a favorite platform. No, I wish things were simpler too, it's not like I love social media or whatnot, but what I love is that this is where people are getting the most bang for their buck, and if tomorrow that changes, then that's what I'll be on your couch talking about. Right?
Absolutely.
I'll be like, Raj, this is what people should do. So I'm very unemotional about what platform, it's not hurrah technology for technology's sake.
Yeah.
It's very much what are you trying to solve, and then does technology make sense, and if so, which piece makes sense?
Absolutely. Who would be your ideal client?
We work with so many of our ideal clients, so that's fantastic. For us, it's not about the size of a client. So whether they're enterprise, or they're middle market, or a tech startup, what we really look for is the leadership and the people that we're working with, and it's more of a mindset. So our ideal client is someone who gets it, who says, look, I get it, we're not playing the short game, this is a long game, we are really interested in what is going to help move the needle.
Right.
And they're really open to being educated and guided, and I think that's where we do our best work. And it's so funny because we work with some very enterprise level companies, but their leadership totally gets that. That's why they're succeeding, their stock prices are going up, and because of that, in many ways, they're agile like a startup. We're not waiting 6 months to get approvals, They have empowered their teams to get approvals quickly, to make things happen, and I think that's what you need. So for us, an ideal client is someone who has that, and then of course, and I tell everyone this, marketing is the ultimate amplifier. If you have a good product or service, you bring us in, we make it awesome. If you have a mediocre product or service, do not bring us in. Don't bring anyone in, because all that'll do is amplify the mediocrity.
Right.
And you don't want that. So it's so important more now than ever before to really make sure that your product or service, your actual offering, is something valuable, and there's market demand, and it's good. Monica Dial yesterday, we heard her speak, and I love that because she said, how much time you spent on the product. Right? When you do that, when you have a really good product or service, then you want to shout it out from the rooftops, and the people who come to the little meetings, they're like, yes, right? You want the hallelujahs, you want the amens. You don't want people being like, wait a second. And that can happen so quickly.
Absolutely. So At what level does, a brand or a company, whether it is on a kind of multinational level or whether it's kind of, like the smaller brands that you see out there on a lot of these platforms, at what level do they need to be at for it to be ideal to bring on a company like yours? Because, a lot of companies and a lot of people make a mistake and spend a lot of money too soon or maybe too late. Like, what would be the ideal time in their journey, professionally speaking, to hire a company like yours?
Yeah, so I think that ideal time is less to do with like the phase of the journey and more the clarity of what they're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
So some brands bring us in and it's pre-product. And we've done this with a couple of bigger brands, and they say, hey, we want to market research, but we actually want to execute on this little campaign. Like, see if we should spend millions of dollars investing in this. And we're able to do that. We're able to run a campaign, landing pages, all this, and say, guys, there's a real demand. Or like, don't touch it. No one's interested. And that's just saved them how much time, right? How much money. And there's no product or service yet, but they have a concept. They want to see, is this something that'll go a long ways? Other times, we have a product or service, we're doing well, but we know we need to like take it to the next level.
Yeah.
Yet other times we're really successful, but we know we won't stay this way unless we keep doing what we are, which is bring in new thoughts, new ideas, and how do we retain these customers? Right?
So your company actually deals with all three levels?
We do, yeah.
That is brilliant.
Attract, engage, retain, as long as that's to do with today's consumer,
yes,
right? B2B and B2C. I mean, that's a great thing. We work with government, we work with B2B software companies that are selling, because even that, at the end of the day, you're selling to people.
Absolutely.
And it used to be, by the way, Raj, if you were a B2B company, that your experience could be comparable, and as long as it was better than your competitors, you win.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that, if your competitors had catalogs and you had a website, high five, right? Like, you're winning. But today, that's not your comparison, because people are comparing you, even if they're buying a service of businesses, to the experience they had at the Apple store.
Yes.
Or the experience they have at Amazon. So that level, that bar has changed dramatically.
Yes.
So whether you're B2B or B2C, you have to rise to meet that same demand.
Absolutely. And final thoughts from you, Shama, in regards to you and your personal brand. Where do you want to head next? Like, I feel like you've kind of accomplished things in your relatively short span of time. That you've kind of reached nirvana, but I know that being the artist that you are as well in all of this, that nirvana is we always kind of change the bar at what nirvana means. What's the next one for you?
Yeah, so it's funny because this is this is really sad and uncool, but I feel like my life song would be like Miley Cyrus's The Climb.
Yeah, okay.
Which is a great song, guys. I don't know if people give it so much slack, but it's really corny, I get it, but I love that it's, there'll always be another mountain. I'll always want to make it move, and that I've learned for myself has been very true.
Yeah.
But my path has been very organic, Raj, and like you, I trust that higher power and my intuition, and so for me, it's not so much about this is what I want to do, here's where I'm going next. It's more about this is what I have to offer, this is who I am, and the more grounded I get into that, what comes my way that's a good fit, right? And so like now I'm an ambassador for WeWork.
Yes.
This is great.
This was recent.
Yeah,
I saw it on LinkedIn.
Recent. And so, yes, and so it's great because, I'm able to offer value to my community. You can get up to 20% off if they use, say, hey, Shama sent me, right? Awesome. And it's great because I think that's also the future of work.
Yes.
Which is mobile. And for me, I'm in Toronto here with you today. Then I'm in LA and New York in the next 4 days. I'm all over. And so to have a place of what work means, where you go, I love that. That's such a great fit for what I'm doing. And then, there's just so many levels where I'm now there's so many sides to me where I think when I first started the company, it was it's all business, suit and tie, how I would dress for an interview would be dramatically different. And now I'm but there's all these facets of me, and I appreciate all of them. Right?
Yes.
So it's I'm very much, so it's funny because I'm very much a woman and I work in the C-suite. It's not, one or the other. I'm a girl in my off time, and no, this is how I show up fully. in everything that I do, right? So like lip gloss and a laptop, and that's okay.
L times L, hey?
Yes,
I love it. I love it. Such a pleasure always to sit and chat with you. I always love the wealth of knowledge and wisdom that comes from such a small, pretty package. Thank you. I can't wait till the next time we sit and chat. I know, like, I don't know if you know this, but there are so many people that came to me when we announced you for the 15th anniversary event that you were going to be here, who follow you, that were asking, is she actually really going to be here?
Oh, that's so sweet.
I hope you had the opportunity to meet some of those people.
I did, and it was lovely, and it was really cool because I got to meet some of them 2 years ago, and then apparently the advice I gave, they were like, oh, I implemented that, this is how it's made a difference, and that to me means so much, and this is why yesterday too, when we were on, like, yes, I can talk about my story, and I'm happy to do so, but for me, it's like, yes, you can hear all these stories, but apply this to your life. This is where you're going to actually see the change, and then you can be like on the Anoki stage, because I think that's what empowerment is about, right? It's about allowing people to give them a platform, the knowledge, the resources, so everyone rises, and I genuinely believe that a rising tide raises all boats. Like, that is my mantra at home, that is my mantra at work, like, people make fun of me for it, but it's just true. It's just true. So I believe that, and I love this because so much of what I do is private. Like, it's for brands, my keynotes are private, and so when I have like a public stage where I can be like, come see me, I love it because I just don't get that opportunity.
Absolutely, and we're so happy to be able to provide that opportunity to our community, to have someone like you come out and actually understand the value of that kind of face time, because that's, at the end of the day, you feel that, with the world that we live in, the digital kind of virtual world we live in, sometimes I feel to myself, will people value that anymore? Like, people who are extremely successful, will they value that moment with a few people in a room to be able to mentor them and to hear from you that that's extremely valuable to you? It kind of legitimizes even the relevance of what we're doing.
Absolutely, and I think the funny thing is the more, in your words, the successful, right, that I get, the more our brand grows, the more I value it, because those opportunities become so far and few between, right? Like, we don't work with really small businesses anymore. It's just we're not a great fit for them. Or I don't get to talk to as many people. I don't get to answer every single message. Like, I don't get that. And there's something to be said about, and the more I don't get that, the more I'm like, wow, that's nice to be able to be in a room, say, raise your hand, answer, because otherwise it's these paid keynotes, it's these organizations that are bringing that value and, have their audiences, but they're private, they're all private events. And so I think, yes, absolutely, to answer your question, I think that becomes even more important, and you hunger for it, because when you hear that, it's a whole different field, and like, you put out your message and you're like, okay, hopefully people are acting on this.
Absolutely.
But so, yeah, I'd say it's one of my favorite parts.
I love it. And that's what I love about you. It's always about the people. It's always about the brands that you work with. You're such a pleasure. I can't wait till the next time we sit and chat. Thank you so much.
Such a pleasure. Always fun to be on your stage.